Welcome to the Module 3 of the Transition Training Series. In this module, we're going to learn about documenting grid activity completion and proof of updating goals. So far you should have watched Modules 1 and 2, and this will build on what you've learned in those modules, and you'll follow this one up with a module on the transition course. So documenting transition grid activity completion. What do I do with the transition grid activities when I write a new annual IEP? Okay, so you guys know what minimally should be in there now. You've seen examples from the matrix of how awesome these can be. Now we need to know what to do with all those grid activities. So now that we've got 8 to 10 grid activities underneath each of the goal areas in the grid, how do you do this? How do you document that? So we need to make sure that that the grid is covering one full IEP term. So we went over that you might have to have 2 years of the transition class in there depending on the date of the IEP. Although the grid represents the current year, your IEP should actually document multi-year planning. It's a step-by-step plan to help them reach their post-secondary goals. What are they going to do after high school? What have we done throughout all of high school to get them there? And this coordinated set of activities is what PDE is looking for. One way for us to document these clearly is to keep a running record in the present level of transition. So upon graduation, we would have that coordinated set of activities built right into the student's file. So when we have to go and write the SAAFP, the bane of all of our existences, when that student gets ready for graduation or aging out, we will have all that transition information right in the IEP. So we'll have it all in one place for that SAAFP writing. So rule 1 to go along with this is to track the activity completion. Throughout the IEP term, special education teachers should be tracking the completion of the activities listed in the grid. So anything you write in there, you are the primary person as the teacher making sure that these things are happening. Many of the activities are going to be completed and tracked in the final career portfolio project in the transition courses. So all level 1 to 3 teachers in grades 8 to 12 are going to be assigned a transition Google folder drive where the teachers are going to upload the final projects. So for as much as we would love to say email your special education teacher with your portfolio, we know that might not happen. So anyone who has actually finished a portfolio in any of the transition courses, those will be uploaded to a specific folder for each case manager. So look for that invitation to add that folder to your Google Drive. Good luck finding it later, but hopefully this will give you a place to track this information. It is important that teachers know when their students are enrolled in the transition course so that they can encourage the students to complete the transition activities. We need to make sure that these activities are happening. The easiest way to make sure we're presenting those opportunities is making sure that the student is taking advantage of those transition classes. For the special services team, your transition teachers should be hopefully doing something like this and also tracking and documenting the transition activity completion. So rule number 2, you have to make sure that this stuff is getting documented in present levels. It's all well and good if you're tracking it in your own records, but if you don't write it in the IEP, it's like it never happened. So just like you would never remove a math IEP goal without documenting the reason in the present levels of academic achievement, you would not remove a transition activity from one annual IEP to the next without first documenting completion, or at least attempting completion that we offered it to the student in the present levels of transition. So a sample statement under each heading would be, during the Transition 9 class in fall 2016, so-and-so completed the following activities, and you list them in there. If the student didn't do his work in the transition class, you can write a statement saying that he was offered the opportunity to learn all of these skills and attempts were made to encourage the completion, but they did not complete the assignments. Some activities, such as taking a career interest inventory or completing a career portfolio, are going to remain in consecutive IEPs. But we need to make sure that if we're leaving an activity in there, just like we'd be leaving an IEP goal in, that we're documenting in present levels as to why that's happening. So an example would be student completed the O-Net Interest Profiler in fall 2016 as part of the Transition 9 course. His top 3 areas of interest were social, enterprise, and conventional. He chose to research becoming a waiter, customer service representative, and a flight attendant. Okay, and then you could have this is just tracking that something happened this year and that during the Transition 10 course is going to do it again. Okay, so we want to have a running document. Do not delete any of the old information. If there's information in there, hopefully there's dates. We need to make sure things are dated. If you don't have a specific date, you can put something like fall of 2016. So if you know that the previous teacher did that and they did it right before the IEP, you can say in April 2015 they took the O-Net Interest Profiler. Just try to have as much information for that running record in there. All right. So that brings us to updating transition goals. What do you do if a student changes transition goals? We know students will change their mind. What do you need to do if that happens? And what if the transition goals are staying the same from one annual IEP to the next? So we're going to start by the first rule is that everything needs to be assessment based. Students are allowed to select any career path they want. Okay, it's up to them. But PDE requires a few criteria for us to follow. And first one is that the goal should be realistic and attainable. We talk about this over and over and over. We need to try to make sure that the students are choosing a career path that they can actually attain, that it's realistic for them and their abilities. If it doesn't seem like it, we need to get to the bottom of what about that career or that position is interesting to the student, what draws them to it. And if we can narrow that down, oftentimes we can find a position that is realistic and attainable for them. Don't ever tell them that they can't do something, but just have further conversation. If you're struggling with this, reach out to the transition team. We'll be happy to jump in and help meet with the student and have these conversations. All transition goals should be based on transition assessment results that have been documented and interpreted in the present levels of transition. So again, I think I've said this 3 times already in the modules. Make sure they're taking the assessments and you have it documented. It is acceptable to have a student select a career choice that did not appear on his interest profile or suggested list. We need to make sure that we're documenting the results and the proof that the student reviewed the suggested occupations. So we can say in here that they looked at them. They were like reviewing the suggested occupations. Yeah, this one might be interesting. It might be interesting. But you know what? I think I still really want to go into the computer graphics field. So that's fine. We just need to make sure that we're documenting that they did that research. Rule number 2, do not delete any old information. I've already said this, but it is normal for students to change their minds about their future plans several times throughout this planning process. If we're starting with the students in 7th grade, by the time they get to graduation, they may have changed their mind 4 or 5 times or backtracked to something they said earlier. So it's our job to track their plans from 14 through graduation. If a student tells us that their transition goal has changed, we need to make a revision to the IEP to update with the new information. And you need to be doing that fairly quickly. Like, not the same day do you need to get in there, but you need to make sure that the revision happens in a timely manner. Okay, so do not delete any of the previous information. Here's an example of one of my students. She came to me and originally 2 years ago, she wanted to go to acting school. She wanted to be an actress. That was her dream. She liked participating in local theater. That was what she wanted to do. Then last year she came to me and said, you know what, I think I'd rather go to college. I think I want to be a psych major. I want to learn more about and work with individuals that have mental health issues. And I said, great. So I went in and I updated everything in the IEP to reflect that. And then she comes back this year and says, you know what? I think I really want to go into the Army right after graduation so that it can help me pay for college. So I can take advantage of the GI Bill, and maybe I'll go get my psych degree later, but I really want to go right into the Army. So then I had to go in and completely rework her transition goals again. But I did not take this out. This is the running record statement that I put in her present levels. Because before she graduates, she may change her mind again and be like, you know what? Maybe I do really want to go back and be an actor. So we're tracking it all in there. Rule number 3. Provide proof if a goal continues. So some students know from the time that they're little that they want to go be in the family profession or something like that. And the goal doesn't change. From the first time you write it when they're 14 through the time they graduate, that goal remains the same. They have a goal of such and such. And that is absolutely okay. What we need to do is make sure we have shown evidence of discussion in the present level so that we have presented them opportunity every single year to review, look at other options, see how it aligns with their interests. And if they still want to go do that, great, go work on the family farm. That's what this example tells you. Just make sure we're documenting it. Here are some examples. Here's how we put everything together. So here's a 9th grade student. He's 16 years old, has an SLD in math, reports that he wants to go to a trade school to be an auto mechanic. Here's his most recent results. The suggested occupations from his ONET. He has a part-time job stocking shelves at a local grocery store. He wants to get a permit. He hasn't yet, but he's tired of relying on the city bus. So that tells us he knows how to ride the city bus, or asking his mom to take him to work. He has done a current skills assessment that revealed that he doesn't need an independent living goal. Here's what he likes to do in his free time, and there's no outside agencies involved at this time. Okay, so how does that look? Here is the transition grid. Okay, this is the example that I used from Module 2. So this is what our IEPs are going to start looking like. So this is this student's previous transition grid. So you have to pretend that this was what was in the IEP, and then this over here in present levels is how you're going to track that these 9th grade activities have happened. Okay, so you would say he wants to go to trade school for a program in auto mechanics. He successfully passed the Transition 9 course where he practiced active listening skills, right here. Researched more details about trade schools and auto mechanics fields such as the admission certification requirements. Here we go. Reviewed high school course offerings. Okay, and created a credit plan for graduation. Okay, so this addressed all of the things in here. He also learned more about his disability and the supports that he's using in his classes, which is an ongoing activity down here. So that covers everything. So you would then be set to remove these Transition 9 activities and replace them potentially with the 11th grade ones. Same thing over here in employment. Look at how this transition present level is going. Look at how much information is there. It is just amazing. So you have all of last year's stuff. You have everything charted about what he did in the 9th grade transition course, and that he's going to be enrolled in 10th grade transition in his 10th grade year. So here are some final reminders. All completed transition activities must be detailed in the present levels of transition without deleting previous information. This means that this section of the Agora IEPs are going to get huge. They're going to be awesome, amazing. The activities in the grid are going to grow, so that means that your present levels of transition are going to as well. Do not forget to include the applicable gen ed requirements in your activities at present levels. So if they took the driver safety class, successfully completed it, they're volunteering, they're doing stuff for their grad project, they took a digital art class and that's what they want to do, make sure you chart it. All IEPs show that transition goals are supported by assessment data and that they've been discussed on a yearly basis. The student informs you that their goal has changed. You need to update it across the IEP. First paragraph of the academic achievement, your present levels of transition, and the grid. LEAs and ICs are going to be working with you on these requirements. Going forward, they're going to look for them. You do not need to revise your old IEPs at this time. We just want you doing these moving forward. If you've opened an IEP for another revision, go in there and take care of transition as well. Again, you're the primary person responsible for these transition services happening, but we are out here to support you as a transition team.